If I don't hear about heated rivalry for the entirety of 2026, it would still be too soon. Let us all emotionally recover, but this video is thankfully not about heated rivalry. This is about Ogami being so pretty and he makes me feel things. But while the chemistry is there, the execution of the romance in Love Begins in the World of If is a bit rough. But that's not really an isolated case for the show, but the Japanese BL thing that's probably not changing soon. Even something as good as When It Rains, It Pours has very clunky intimacy scenes. Japanese BLs and shows in general are very good at being cute and adorable, but intimate and sexual scenes are not their strongest suit. Our Youth, a show that's arguably really has good intimacy, also fumble with the bed scenes, but you can argue that the actors are playing characters who are young and in their first relationship. Also, Junsei was like 19 during the filming of the show, touchy subject, so we can let that one slide. Also, while we're on the topic of the actors, can we please, for the love of the gay gods, get over this obsession with the height difference? It's getting ridiculous at this point. When one actor has to physically bend just to make eye contact with the other, we've officially crossed some line. And let me be very clear, I have zero issues with height difference in real life. You do you, boo. I do not care, that's not the point. Between this show, my bias is showing that anime called The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity, and every romance novels that spend two entire pages lovingly describing how huge a man's hands compared to his girlfriend's. We get it. He's big, she's small, or in BL terms, one of them is quote unquote delicate and the other one is built like a tank. Height difference becomes a visual representation of dominance in masculinity, and it's honestly irritating me. Did I mention that this show, Love Begins in the World of If, is a fantasy? Because yes, it is. Kano found himself in a parallel world after visiting a temple, which honestly, one of the best setup for a horror story. Anyways, Kana is struggling at work, shifting from the technical side to sales. And as someone who deals with people every single day at work, I completely understand why that would be trigger for anxiety. It is infinitely easier to deal with technology because there are rules, there are parameters, and clear inputs and outputs. People, on the other hand, are unpredictable, very emotional, and very rarely come with an instruction manual. So yes, I get why Kano spirals. I get the panic attacks over small issues that don't feel small at all when you're already overwhelmed. That part is painfully real. Then he ends up in a parallel world where people are nicer, more patient, easier to work with, not because the world is magically perfect, but because the original Kano who existed there was able to do something our Kano could not, voice his concern and ask for help and advocate for himself. As a result, people did not see him as difficult. But the thing is, Kano in the real world is not being difficult on purpose. He's a fish out of water. He was thrown in a role that demands a completely different skill set without being given the tools to succeed. Instead of training support or gradual adjustment, he gets Ogami's tough love, offhanded approach. And yeah, I know later in the series we saw Ogami's perspective, but Kano is not really versed in people's skills, so no wonder he shuts down. No wonder he struggles to connect with people who assume his anxiety is a personality flaw instead of a situational response. So basically, this is a show saying, see, if you're not driven with anxiety, your life will be better. And to that, I say, fuck off. Is that really the storyline we're committing to? Because I'm already pissed off. I genuinely cannot stand this narrative where the solution to crippling anxiety is simply overcome it and you stop being a loser and people suddenly like you and the world treats you better. Because the problem is not the environment or the people around you, the problem is obviously you, your anxiety, your awkwardness, and your inability to be normal. This show is basically saying that your life will be better if you're not you. That acceptance is conditional on how well you can mask, assimilate, and make yourself palatable to other people. Because that's a deeply ugly message, whether the show intended it to be or not. It honestly reminds me of How to Train Your Dragon, where everyone keeps telling Hiccup that maybe the problem is him, his refusal to fit the mold of a traditional Viking.
What you look like, it's what's inside that he can't stand.
Thank you for summing that up.
Look, the point is, want to get out there to fight dragons, you need to stop all this.
What you just
At least in the movie, the narrative eventually has the decency to say, no, the world has to change too. This whole show gets under my skin. Why is the burden always on the anxious, the introverted, and the neurodivergent coded character to fix themselves so they can be treated with basic decency? Why is kindness something you earn after personal transformation instead of the default? How about this? How about people are just kind and considerate from the start? How about the lesson is not you need to be braver or louder or different, but that the lesson is the world does not get to punish you for being anxious or quiet. I understand the concept of self improvement and self empowerment. I was a coach and a manager for a long time. I preach this shit in a lot of coaching sessions and training. I preach accountability, growth, and self awareness and the building self resilience regularly. But there's a very real line between empowerment and blame. Actively enforcing the idea that suffering is a personal failure rather than acknowledging the social conditions that create or worsen it is not empowering. It tells people if you are still struggling, you just did not try hard enough, while conveniently ignoring the systems and the environments and the power dynamics and plain old human cruelty. Self improvement, especially in a workplace setting, is about giving people tools and not handing out blame when they fail. Sometimes the problem is not a failing employee at all. Sometimes it's a failure of the system around them. The workplace that does not support learning, does not provide clear expectations, or does not adapt to the people doing the work. It is setting them up for struggle and then conveniently blaming them for it. A healthy, well managed workplace understands that people do not magically perform better through pressure alone. They perform better when they're given proper training, realistic workloads, psychological safety, and managers who are willing to adjust structures instead of forcing individuals to contort themselves to fix a broken setup. And good leadership is not about asking why this person cannot keep up. It's about asking what is missing here and how do we fix it. And yes, this is how I do my coaching sessions. So call me if you need a leadership speaker. The thing is, people grow at different speeds with different strengths and different needs. A workplace that's serious about improvement is constantly recalibrating the process, the expectation, and the support. Because when people are equipped to do their jobs well, performance improves naturally. And here's the part that a lot of companies pretend not to understand that good performance translates to good business. Not because employees are scared into compliance, but because they are supported into competence. And what frustrates me the most is that these stories often think they're so progressive for featuring someone with anxiety or someone who might be on the spectrum, and they think they're so great and so woke, but it's the same old adage of you just have to try harder and everything will magically fall into place. If it's not working out for you, then you're just not trying hard enough. Going back to the show, because yes, this is about the show, I would have preferred if the show framed the story as see what happens when people are in a kinder, encouraging environment. They open up and they become more comfortable. So episode 5, Kano comes back to the real world and almost immediately people start commenting, you seem more approachable. And sure, I get it. Dealing with people is part of the job and communication matters, soft skill matters. I'm not arguing against that. What I take umbrage with is the framing. The takeaway is he fixed himself and therefore the world is kinder now. As if the only thing standing between him and basic decency was his personality. And now that he's adjusted his demeanor, people respond better, so problem solved. Case closed and growth are completed. When someone say you seem more approachable, what I hear is you are easier to deal with now. And that's not the same thing as being healthier or happier or actually supported. And the audacity of this show to have Kano apologize for seeming unapproachable. I'm getting so fired up. Someone take me out. Because what exactly is he apologizing for? Not smiling enough? Not performing emotional availability on demand? Not being instantly comfortable in an environment that gave him zero tools, zero support, and zero grace? Kano is not acknowledging a mistake. He's taking responsibility for other people's discomfort. It's so unfair. The message is the world is not changing for you, so you got to change yourself to fit in. And for that, I give you this scene from Bad Buddy.
ทำแล้วถึงมันจะเปลี่ยนโลกทั้งใบไม่ได้แต่มันเปลี่ยนความรู้สึกของลุงที่มีต่อโลกใบนี้ได้นะเองอาจจะมองว่าลุงคนเดียวเปลี่ยนโลกนี้ไม่ได้แต่ลุงอยากให้มองว่าโลกนี้มันก็เปลี่ยนคนอย่างลุงไม่ได้
Episode 6, we got a POV from Ogami, showing that he actually tried to approach Kano at the start, but Kano, not being able to express himself properly, came across as dismissive of Ogami's help and concern. But really, they just don't know each other enough to perceive the other's mindset and motives. So, yes, it's your usual miscommunication. One thing I'll actually give the show credit for is how clearly it contrasts the two versions of Ogami because that difference matters. Real world Ogami wants to support Kano, he believes in him, steps in when it's necessary, but ultimately lets Kano try, fail, and figure things out. It's a quiet support, the kind that does not announce itself and does not smother and does not confuse care with control. Parallel World Ogami, on the other hand, wants to do everything for Kano. He takes over and he decides. He shields Kano from difficulty instead of helping him navigate it. And yes, at first, that version is incredibly appealing because being taken care of is easy. When you're anxious, overwhelmed, and exhausted, having someone else carry the weight feels like relief. I actually appreciate that the show lets Kano lean into that at first. That choice makes sense. Of course, he prefers the Ogami who removes friction from his life. Of course, he gravitates towards the version where he does not have to struggle or risk failure. But as Kano stays in the parallel world, the crack starts to show. That Ogami is not just helping, he's limiting. He does not let Kano do anything on his own. There's no room for agency and no room for growth, and no room for Kano to test himself. In the end, Kano choosing the quiet support over the all consuming protection actually is a meaningful choice. It shows growth without erasing who he is. He's not choosing struggle for the sake of struggle, he's choosing autonomy and a chance to stand on his own with someone beside him instead of in front of him. I just wish the show handled the storytelling consistently everywhere else. So, have you seen Love Begins in the World of If? Did you like it? Comment down below. Tell me what I should watch next. This is Namagasa. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, drink your water, stay hydrated. Bye bye.